So in this presentation, we discuss neurological movement, and this is something which is not really talked about so much in your child's learning and development, but it's really the very first stage of development for children, for babies, really before they learn language and speech and communication. They uh, they develop neurologically through the movement in both the womb and also in their crawling. So what is neurological movement? Well, neural movement refers to neurological and physical development through movement. Moishe Feldenkrais described movement as life, as uh, without movement, life is unthinkable. Movement begins in utero. Movement in utero, the baby is suspended in amniotic fluid, which allows for greater movement and flexibility in the womb. The child's brain and body develop symbiotically through this movement in utero. Children with autism can be very inactive during pregnancy, leaving them less developed neurologically and physically. Often, parents with children with autism say that their children uh, in the womb was very inactive and didn't move. They didn't do the usual kicking or moving from side to side. Often there's this movement, and babies that are very well developed tend to be very active, and ones that are um, less that maybe have there's developmental issues. Often they're very inactive, and they can. This means they're not developing their muscles, and in the same time they're not developing themselves neurologically. Um, so, what are the stages of neurological movement? Well, stage one really happens in the womb, but the real learning is occurring at a much higher rate when the babies are actually born. The very first stage is in the crawling stage. As you can see here in this photograph, this is called creeping. This is when your baby is scooting across the floor, just using their upper body arms. So the hands propel the body forward. So that child will start to move forward in order to grasp something. They will first begin to just pull themselves along using their arms. This is a more cruder method, but this is a simpler form of movement. This only activates part of the body, just the upper part of the body, so there's less movement. So this is really a first stage in crawling. Next, we see a more advanced stage of movement. This is stage two. This is cross crawling. This is when the baby starts to use its entire body, so all the muscles in the body are activated, and also the left and right side of the body, as well as the left and right side of the brain, are activated. As you see here, the baby is moving using its entire body, so its left and right side are integrated as it moves. And this is a cross pattern which develops itself, the child's brain. And we know that these cross patterns are very beneficial in the way that it develops the child's mind, it develops the brain, and it prepares them for this real sort of rapid learning of language and speech. The next diagram we show you can really illustrate the connections between the left hand and the right hand and how they connect to the brain. The left hand connects to the prefrontal cortex. So this is the speech center, also is connected to the left hand, and the writing. So writing is like right-handed, so it's usually left hand. They all they work in mirrors. So auditory complexes are associated with this side of the brain. General in perspective center, language and mathematical calculations, visual cortex, right visual field. And you see with the right hand, there's the prefrontal cortex also. This stretches across the entire front of the brain. Analysis by touch, so that's the right hand. Auditory complex, that's the left ear. Also right hand, spatial visualization and analysis. And at the back of the brain again is the visual cortex, the visual field. So you can see that there's real connections going on with the body and the brain. This is something that's not really spoken about so much, but this is really part of like that mind-body connection, which we know about and have known about in medicine and also in the way people move. In this next slide, we see the types of parts of the brain. You can see that the left and right brain integration is vital in your child's mental and physical development. So the left side is more analytical, problem solving, mathematical in its nature. So this is like it's sort of more sort of structured puzzle, puzzles and games, and being able to work out sort of it's more a linear time structured approach, whereas the right side of the brain is really more to do with nature and arts and creativity, music, you know, also like love and connection, emotions, and so we really need the integration between both parts of the brain for a real integration of it, ourselves. So we need, to be able to solve problems, but at the same time we need to to be connected to our emotions and to be loving and creative. And we can't just be the dominant in one side. We need the integration between both areas of the brain, and both these sort of skills are required for holistic approach to integrated person. So as we see, these are both very important, and the neurological movement which we talked about. This is really the connections in the brain, that really how the way that we move, and the importance of movement in order for us to become developed neurologically and physically. These mind and body connections are very important for our own health, not just in childhood, but also movement throughout our entire lives. So when we stop moving, we often stop learning. Also, we know this with in Alzheimer's and dementia patients. Also, some people that have mobility issues, they can become more neurologically less developed when they stop moving. So there are many books written on this subject, and I would recommend that you look into this as something that is not will not really be talked about so much within the mainstream approaches, but it's very important, especially anyone who knows about the body and the connections that there. Okay.